There is a specific kind of torture that humans invented solely for the digital age. We don't do it to feel love. We rarely do it to feel hope. We do it, almost compulsively, to confirm our worst fears. It usually happens late at night. The world is quiet. The distractions of the day have faded. And in that silence, your hand reaches for the phone. You know you shouldn't. Your friends have told you not to. Your own pride has told you not to. But there is a hunger in the brain that logic cannot starve. You open the app. You type the name. Or maybe you don't even have to type it. Maybe it's already there, sitting at the top of your recent searches, a ghost that haunts your algorithm. You tap the profile, and then you begin to scroll. You are looking for something specific, even if you can't name it. Maybe you're looking for a sign that they are miserable. Maybe you're looking for proof that they've changed. But more often than not, you are engaging in a behavior psychologists call pain shopping. You are scrolling through the life of an ex-partner who has moved on, looking for evidence that will hurt you. You see the new smile. You see the weekend getaway. You see the person who replaced you. And with every image, every caption, every tagged photo, you feel a physical drop in your chest, a precise, chemical shot of inadequacy. And yet, you keep scrolling. Why? Why would a rational human being, whose biological imperative is to seek pleasure and avoid pain, voluntarily walk into a burning building night after night? Why do we stalk the people who broke us? It is easy to dismiss this behavior as obsession or jealousy or an inability to let go. We label ourselves as crazy or weak. But if you look beneath the surface, if you peel back the layers of anxiety and heartache, you find that pain shopping isn't really about the ex at all. It is a complex physiological and psychological event. It is a search for certainty in a world that has given you none. To understand why we do this, we have to understand what social media has done to the grieving process. For thousands of years of human history, a breakup meant absence. If you parted ways with someone in a village 300 years ago, or even in a city 30 years ago, they disappeared. You didn't see what they ate for breakfast the next day. You didn't know what color shirt they wore to a party 2 weeks later. You certainly didn't see them holding hands with someone new in high definition. There was a void, and that void, as painful as it was, allowed the brain to do the necessary work of detachment. Absence was the soil in which acceptance grew. But today, we have abolished absence. We live in the age of infinite accessibility. The person is gone from your bed, gone from your dinner table, but they are alive in your pocket. They are a pixelated phantom. This accessibility creates a cognitive dissonance in the brain. One part of you knows it is over. You know the relationship is dead. But the primitive part of your brain, the part that scans for threats and bonds, sees their face every day. It sees them moving, smiling, living. To your amygdala, they are not gone. They are right there. And this brings us to the first psychological driver of pain shopping, the attempt to solve the puzzle of ambiguous loss. When a relationship ends without total clarity, and let's be honest, most modern breakups are messy, confusing, or sudden, the brain is left with an open loop. The brain hates open loops. It craves closure. It craves a narrative that makes sense. When you stalk their profile, you aren't just being nosy. You are trying to close the loop. You are looking for data. You are acting like a detective at the scene of a crime, trying to piece together the timeline. When did they meet this new person? Was I just a placeholder? Was I the problem? You think that if you find the answer, the pain will stop. You think if you can just pinpoint the moment they stopped loving you, you can finally rest. But here is the trap. Social media is not a documentary. It is a curated gallery. It is a museum of highlights. You are looking for the truth in a place designed to manufacture envy. You see a photo of them laughing at a dinner party. Your brain interprets this as, they are happy. They have forgotten me. They are winning. You do not see the argument they had in the car on the way there. You do not see the loneliness they felt 5 minutes before the photo was taken. You do not see the doubt. You only see the performance. And because you are comparing your internal reality, your grief, your messiness, your loneliness, with their external performance, you will always lose. This is what psychologists call comparative suffering. You are pitting your behind-the-scenes footage against their movie trailer. And in that gap between what you feel and what you see them projecting, you create a story that destroys your self-worth. You tell yourself that you were the difficult one, that you were unlovable, that they were capable of being perfect, just not with you. This is where the shopping in pain shopping becomes literal. You are browsing for evidence to confirm your own inadequacy. There is a concept in psychology known as the confirmation bias. If you believe you are unworthy, your brain will scan the environment for evidence that proves you are unworthy. When you look at your ex's new partner, you don't just see a person. You see a list of things you are not. If they are fitter than you, you tell yourself your body was the problem. If they seem more artistic, you tell yourself you were too boring. You take the image and you weaponize it against yourself. But there is something even deeper and perhaps darker at play here. Something chemical. We have to talk about dopamine. We often think of dopamine as the pleasure molecule, but that is a misunderstanding. Dopamine is the molecule of seeking. It is the fuel of desire, not the feeling of satisfaction. It drives you to hunt, to search, to expect. When you were in the relationship, seeing your partner provided a dopamine hit. A text message, a smile, a touch, these were rewards. Now that the relationship is over, the source of that reward is cut off. But the neural pathways are still there. They are deep tracks worn into the mud of your mind. When you go to their profile, you are stimulating those old pathways. Even if what you find hurts you, even if you see them with someone else, the act of finding something, anything, releases a microscopic hit of dopamine. It is a perverse cycle. The brain says, look at them. You look, you feel pain, but you also feel a twisted sense of connection. For a brief second, you are involved in their life again. You are a witness. You are not irrelevant. This is why it feels like an addiction, because it is. It is what behavioral psychologists call an intermittent reinforcement schedule. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. Most of the time, when you check, nothing has changed. It's the same profile picture, the same old post. That's the boring lever pull on the slot machine. But every once in a while, maybe once a week, there is something new. A story, a status update, a change in bio. That unpredictability keeps you hooked. You keep checking, waiting for the jackpot of information, even though the jackpot is actually a bomb that blows up your emotional stability. And then there is the Zeigarnik effect. This is a psychological phenomenon that states people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. A waiter remembers the details of an order only until the table is served. Once the check is paid, the memory flushes. The task is closed. A breakup where you have been replaced or where things were left unsaid feels like a task that is forever unfinished. By stalking them, you are subconsciously trying to finish the task. You are monitoring the situation, waiting for the moment where it makes sense. But the cruel reality of the digital age is that the task never finishes. The stream of content never ends. They will keep living. They will keep posting. There is no final scene where the credits roll and you can walk out of the theater. You are stuck watching a movie that continues indefinitely, in which you are no longer a character. This brings us to the most painful realization of all, the fear of irrelevance. Why does it hurt so much to see them move on? Is it just because we miss them? Or is it because their ability to move on suggests that we didn't matter as much as we thought we did? We want to believe that our absence left a hole in their life. We want to believe that we were significant, irreplaceable, a landmark in their personal history. When we see them seamlessly transition into a new life, a new relationship, a new aesthetic, it feels like an erasure. It challenges our ego integrity. If I can be replaced that easily, was I ever truly seen? Pain shopping is a way of checking for the scar. We want to look at them and see a scar where we used to be. We want to see that they are limping just a little bit because of the loss of us. When we see them sprinting, laughing, thriving, we feel invisible. And for the human ego, invisibility is a fate worse than hatred. We would rather they hate us than be indifferent to us. Hatred is at least a connection. Indifference is a void. So we keep watching, looking for a crack in the armor, looking for a sad song lyric in their stories, looking for a sign that they, too, are awake at 2 a.m. holding a phone and thinking of the past. But here is the truth that the screen will never tell you. You are analyzing their life through a keyhole, and you are assuming you see the whole room. People do not post their panic attacks. People do not post the moment they stare at the ceiling wondering if they made a mistake. People do not post the awkward silence at dinner with the new partner where they realize they have nothing to talk about. Social media is a performance of wellness. And the people who are posting the most aggressively about how happy they are, how blessed they are, how in love they are, often, they are the ones trying the hardest to convince themselves. True contentment is quiet. True love doesn't need a witness. When you are truly, deeply happy, you often forget to take the picture. You forget to post. So the very evidence you are using to hurt yourself, the barrage of happy posts, might actually be evidence of their own overcompensation. But you can't see that. You only see the gloss. There is another layer to this, something more protective. Sometimes we pain shop because it is the only way we know how to regulate our emotions. It sounds contradictory, but hear this out. When you are in the limbo of a breakup, you can feel numb. You can feel a drifting, anxious fog. The pain of seeing them with someone else is sharp. It is specific. It is grounding. Sometimes we choose the sharp, specific pain of jealousy over the dull, aching void of emptiness. At least when you are angry, you feel alive. At least when you are crying over a specific photo, you have a target for your grief. It allows you to externalize the pain. I am hurting because of that picture. It is easier to process than I am hurting because I have to rebuild my entire identity from scratch. But this mechanism, while understandable, is destructive. It keeps your cortisol levels high. It keeps your body in a state of fight or flight. You are keeping your nervous system in a war zone long after the treaty has been signed. You are continuously re-traumatizing yourself. Every time you look, you are reopening the wound before the scab has a chance to form. You are resetting your healing clock to 0. So how do we stop? How do we break a loop that is wired into our biology? It starts with a radical shift in perspective. You have to realize that pain shopping is not an act of love. It is an act of self-harm. You need to ask yourself the hard question, what am I getting out of this? Are you getting clarity? No. Are you getting closure? No. Are you getting them back? Definitely not. You are getting a recurrent injury. You are participating in your own breaking. The moment you feel the urge to look, you have to recognize it not as curiosity, but as a symptom of withdrawal. You are a junkie craving a hit of the very thing that is poisoning you. The solution is not just willpower. Willpower is a finite resource. The solution is replacement and friction. You have to make the behavior harder to do. This is why blocking, or at least muting, is not immature. It is not petty. It is mental hygiene. It is putting a guardrail between you and the cliff. When you block someone, you aren't doing it to punish them. They might not even notice. You are doing it to protect your future self. You are reclaiming your digital environment. But beyond the mechanics of blocking, there is a philosophical surrender that needs to happen. You have to accept the not knowing. You have to make peace with the fact that you will never know the full truth of their new life. You will never know if they talk about you. You will never know if they are truly happy. And you have to realize that knowing wouldn't change your reality. If they are miserable, you are still broken up. If they are happy, you are still broken up. The outcome is the same. The information is irrelevant to your trajectory. There is a profound freedom in apathy. Not the apathy of not caring, but the cultivated apathy of realizing that their life is no longer your story to write, or even to read. Think about the energy it takes to stalk, the mental calculation, the analysis, the zooming in on photos, the emotional recovery afterwards. Imagine if you took all of that psychic energy, that massive voltage you are sending out into the void toward a person who is not looking back, and you turned it inward. Imagine if you used that energy to water your own grass instead of staring at theirs to see if it's greener. The people who heal the fastest are not the ones who find someone new immediately. They are the ones who reclaim their narrative. They are the ones who stop being the audience to their ex's life and start being the protagonist of their own. When you stop posting for an audience, and when you stop being the audience, you enter a space of reality. Real life is not on a screen. Real life is the taste of your coffee. It is the friend sitting across from you. It is the way the air feels on your skin when you walk outside without a phone in your hand. The ex you are stalking is a ghost. They are a collection of pixels and memories. The version of them you are looking for, the one who loved you, the one who knew you, doesn't exist in that profile anymore. That version is gone. And the new version, the one in the photos, they are a stranger who looks familiar, but a stranger nonetheless. You do not stalk strangers. You do not wake up at 2 a.m. to check on the emotional state of a random person you passed on the street. You have to let them become a stranger again. This is the hardest part of grief. The second death. The first death is the breakup. The second death is the realization that they are just a person, not a villain, not a hero, just a person, flawed and complex, living a life that has nothing to do with you. There is a concept called JOMO, the joy of missing out. Usually, it refers to missing parties or events, but we can apply it here. The joy of missing out on their life. There is a peace in not knowing. There is a peace in realizing that their timeline is proceeding without you, and the sun still rises. When you finally stop looking, silence returns. At first, the silence is terrifying. It feels empty. You feel untethered. But slowly, that silence begins to fill up with something else. It fills up with you. You start to remember who you were before them. You start to notice the world again, not as a backdrop for your grief, but as a place of possibility. You realize that your worth was never tied to their perception of you. It was never tied to whether they upgraded or downgraded. Your worth is an intrinsic quality, separate from their existence. So tonight, when the urge comes, when the room is dark and the screen is bright, when your thumb hovers over the search bar, stop. Put the phone down. Feel the anxiety. Let it wash over you. Do not run from it. Do not try to medicate it with a search. Just sit with it. Breathe into the uncertainty. Remind yourself that you are not a detective. You are not a historian. You are a living, breathing person who deserves to be present in your own life. You do not need to know. You only need to be here. The story on the screen is a fabrication. The pain it causes is real, but it is optional. You can choose, right now, to step out of the theater. You can choose to walk away from the glass. Because the life you are obsessing over is a mirage. And the life you are neglecting, the one right here, in the quiet, in the dark, is the only one that can actually save you. Let them go, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Let the screen go black, and for the first time in a long time, let yourself rest.